Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new episode 119, if I'm not mistaken, of your favourite Formula 1 show. I'm joined, as always, this time out by Matt212 How are we doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm worried about the delay that I'm going to respond to everything with because I'm, halfway across the globe. So, yeah, I'm having a good time in Nashville, Tennessee, which is very, very nice. And it's actually cooler here than it is in Gloucestershire, where Matt is right now. So I'm having a great time.
Yeah, it's going to be Jamie on a lot of delay, me slowly just turning into a sweat bucket as the podcast goes on today. But of course, we're back this week out to preview the Canadian Grand Prix, of course. Formula 1 returning to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. And of course, quickly, before we jump into that, of course, I think we can't go on without addressing the elephant in the room, isn't it, Jamie? And of course, just wishing everyone in Canada at the moment, with all the wildfires going on, stays safe. And obviously, stay indoors. And what's always the rule? If you can see a forest fire coming towards you, your best bet is to start another one, isn't it, where you are, and then go into the space where you've just lit that one. So if you're in Canada,
I didn't know that. Maybe I'll use that when I'm in New York next week.
Exactly, that's what you got to do. I don't think there's forest fires currently in New York, Jamie, but I mean, my dad was a fireman, so I do know these things, luckily. But anyway, like we said, Canadian Grand Prix this weekend, Jamie. It's been a fairly slow news week. We feel like this one is going to be quite a short episode on the whole, but there has been some exciting revelations going on in the world of Formula 1. Now, of course, obviously, last time in Barcelona, we kind of got a few different storylines going on. Of course, Mercedes, it looks like the B-Spec car is going to be not quite Red Bull competitive, but might now mean that Aston Martin and Ferrari are duking it out for P3. But, speaking of Ferrari, Adrian Newey and Christian Horner both have, within the last 12 months, been offered jobs at Maranello. What do you make of that?
I think Ferrari are kind of banking on their pull factor from being Ferrari, that they think they can just go in and pick anyone they want. But realistically, when you're at a Red Bull team that, well, in the last 12 months, they've been dominating the sport, you'd be a bit of a mug to leave that, I'd feel. But it doesn't massively surprise me, because obviously Ferrari were window shopping for team principals and new staff members because of all the fallout, really, from Binotto and the previous management there. So it doesn't massively surprise me. And obviously they ended up with Fred Vasseur, who is a slightly lesser team principal than Christian Horner, I would say.
Oh, harsh.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been thinking about it a bit because, of course, we originally got the information out of Dr. Helmut Marko, didn't we? And he said, of course, it took him apparently an entire night to convince Christian Horner to stay, and a couple of $1 million as well, to keep him over at Red Bull. Now, quickly, how cursed do we think Christian Horner in Ferrari gear would look?
Oh, yeah. It wouldn't only be that, but I feel like Christian Horner's a very, British character, as in, he is very, he jokes about everything. He doesn't really take anything seriously, and he jokes quite severely. And I just feel like all the Italians would get so confused.
I would say the Christian Horner of 10 years ago maybe is a bit more like that. I think Christian Horner now is fairly boring and straight cut, to be honest.
Yeah, and we see a lot of him in DTS, so...
You say, you're literally also comparing him to Fred Vasseur, who was famous last year for going around with a water pistol at Grand Prix. We absolutely love Fred. I mean, he's up there, isn't he? As someone we'd have on the podcast at any time. Fred Vasseur, if you're listening, drop us a line, mate. If you want to be featured, I'm sure you do.
I'm sure he's not very busy at the minute either.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, this week or so, he's probably had a quiet weekend in. But yeah, I mean, Christian Horner to Red Bull obviously sounds absolutely crazy. Also strikes me as the kind of guy that would then immediately go running to the FIA about what Red Bull are doing that might or might not be illegal as well.
Yeah, well,
I feel
probably
like immediately throw him under the bus.
Yeah, I get that feeling too.
But Adrian Newey, even though, on the other hand, Jamie, this has been going on for almost 30 years now. Ferrari have been trying to get him, which is absolutely wild. Of course, originally tried back in the late 90s. Adrian Newey explained at that point, of course, both his kids were at school, so obviously he would have had to move them to Italy with him and things like that. And then again, before he went to Red Bull, which worries me now that was, nearly 20 years ago. Red Bull has almost been kicking around for 20 years in Formula 1, which is nuts.
Ridiculous.
And then, of course, far more recently as well. And I think the 2005 or 2004, 2005 one was... Sorry, 2005, 2006, wasn't it? He wasn't quite there at the start of Red Bull. That was probably Ferrari's best chance at getting him. And the only way I could ever see Adrian Newey going there since is if Ferrari had let him build a road car as well.
Yeah, that was kind of what kept him at Red Bull for a bit with the Valkyrie project as well. So, I mean, he's someone I could end up, could see ending up at Ferrari, to be honest, because he has done the rounds a little bit, hasn't he? Obviously, it's began at Leighton House and then McLaren for a long time, Red Bull for a long time,
and Williams.
He's still got
Williams.
Oh, Williams too, yeah. So he's done the rounds, and whichever team he goes to, other than Leighton House, certainly all of the teams he goes to punch above their weight. And most of them end up winning world championships. So it would be brilliant for the team, for Ferrari, if they were able to get him.
I think, though, he has also said at this point he's too old to want to move to Ferrari. I mean, let's be fair, I've always wondered as well, what happens when Adrian Newey calls it quits? Do we think Red Bull could be in deep trouble then?
I don't think they'd be in deep trouble straight away. But
not straight
it would
away.
it would kind of be I know he's pulling the strings, but he's not. He's almost like, in football terms, he's like the director of football. He's not the manager, so it wouldn't fall apart immediately. But you could see within 3 to 5 years, it might suddenly start going a bit downhill.
Well, just remember, Jamie, as you mentioned there, of course, about Adrian Newey's history. Obviously, Leighton House weren't exactly a particularly competitive team, but obviously they went under not long after Adrian Newey left, after a couple of unsuccessful cars. Obviously, left Williams at the end of 1996. Obviously, they won the 1997 world title, and then have won about 10 races ever since then, pretty much all in the early 2000s. Left McLaren, of course, to go to Red Bull at the end of 2005. McLaren won one more championship, and have barely won again. Adrian Newey,
but then
Formula 1 team,
he is a bit of a magician.
Well.
But then McLaren were, like I was saying just then, until the end of 2012, they were still competitive most of the seasons, and then that's kind of where you see the effect of him leaving. What's that? 5-6 years later, suddenly you forget how to build a car. So I don't think Red Bull would immediately fall down the pecking order, but within 5-6 years, they could suddenly be back to being like a midfield team.
Perhaps that's how Max Verstappen's downfall begins.
He'll go to Mercedes or Ferrari then.
He probably would, but perhaps that's where, because at the moment, I mean, we'll talk about this again in a little moment, but it does feel like, doesn't it, that this is Max Verstappen's Formula 1 world and we're all just living in it. And
yeah, definitely.
Because, again, obviously, it will always come to an end at some point, but it's whether it goes down, the Sebastian Vettel route, because, of course, he's also mentioned this week about potentially moving to Ferrari in the future. Like he said, could Max Verstappen try and do a Michael Schumacher, or would Max Verstappen end up doing a Sebastian Vettel if he went to Ferrari?
Yeah. I mean, it depends almost entirely on the team, because drivers, as much as they galvanise teams, like you've seen at Aston Martin this season, they don't make the car. So, you've got to go there at the right time, which I think Michael Schumacher absolutely nailed with the power trio at the top of the tree at Ferrari.
He brought them with him.
Yeah, I suppose he did. And I guess Max would have a lot of shots to call in terms of who you'd take with him, maybe from Red Bull, who'd bring in from other places. Because the state Ferrari in right now, you wouldn't go near him with a barge pole, to be honest.
No, but maybe that's what he'd have to do, bring Adrian Newey and Christian Horner with him. Perhaps they all sit down together and talk about going over to Ferrari. Because I think if all three of them went, then it would take, a season, maybe 2, before they're back on top, sensibly?
Probably, yeah.
But, I mean, speaking though, Ferrari winning, Jamie, let's not forget, of course, no Formula 1 last weekend because the only race of the year, the only weekend they cannot race on is Le Mans. Le Mans calls the shots over Formula 1 still, which I think is absolutely brilliant.
That's
but
great.
Ferrari won it. I cannot believe that. After 50 years away in the 100th centenary anniversary event at Le Mans, Ferrari, I honestly expected them just to come back and bottle it. And they only went and did it first time of asking. Absolute scenes.
Yeah, unreal. And I didn't actually catch much of the race at all, or any of the race really. But I heard it was good stuff. And actually, it means that the Sauber drivers between 2018 and 19, which are 4 different drivers, the one with the least motorsport legacy is now Charles Leclerc, which is quite entertaining.
Yes, one's got a World Championship, one's got a Le Mans win, one's got an Indy 500 win, and Charles Leclerc is kind of worrying for Charlie.
Well, they've got the Triple Crown between them, apart from Leclerc.
Yeah, they've got the Triple Crown between those 3, and Charles Leclerc is also there, I suppose. Is the highest rated of the lot of them at the moment, which is absolutely wild. But Jamie, that's going to segue us nicely on to our quiz this week. Now,
oh no,
you are going to get 1 minute because, let's be fair, sometimes I just like to watch the world burn, and sometimes that includes proving to you all how bad Jamie's knowledge of motorsport is outside of Formula 1.
It's very true.
I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes. So this year, there were 18 ex-Formula 1 drivers racing at Le Mans. You've got to name as many as you can. Your time starts now.
Oh no. Giovinazzi, Kobayashi, he might probably... Nakajima, he might have done it.
Nope.
This is awful. This is real
it.
bad. Yeah. For Alan McNish.
Nope, he hasn't raced in like a decade.
Mark Blundell. Martin Brundle.
He hasn't raced since the 90s. Well, apart from in Tourist cars.
Who else has even...
You got 1 minute left.
This is so bad. Okay.
This is
Fisichella, he might have done.
Nope. He only races Ferrari GT3 cars.
This is actually shocking. What sort of era am I thinking in terms of when did they race in F1?
Pretty much all of them are late 2000s, early 2010s.
Oh, Brendan Hartley,
Yes.
Timo Glock,
Nope.
Nick Heidfeld,
Nope.
Jarno Trulli.
Nope.
This is so bad. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Karen Chandok.
Nope. 20 seconds.
Jerome D'Ambrosio.
Nope.
Will Stevens, Roberto Meri.
Will Stevens is correct.
Yes, there we go. Max Chilton.
Nope.
This is Alex
3,
Rossi. No.
2, 1, and
Wow.
your time is up, Jamie.
Wow.
That one was
For somebody who didn't watch Le Mans, doing a quiz on Le Mans.
I mean, I had to do that one for you. 1,
How
2,
many-
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got 4 out of 18. You did very
All right.
well there.
Nice. What are the
Some of
names I
these-
should have got?
Because
Because I'll know all of them because they've been in F1.
You will
but...
know. You'll know. Well, actually, you should know every single one of these. So one that I thought you would get, to be fair, just because he was a bit of an oddity, was Andre Lotterer.
Oh yeah, I could have got that.
Of course, one-time Formula 1 driver. There were actually 2 more single race Formula 1 drivers as well on the list. Jack Aitken and Pietro Fittipaldi.
Okay, well, Fittipaldi did 2, didn't he?
He did 2,
So-
sorry, yeah, but still, the point stands.
Get your facts right.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Sebastian Bourdais.
Okay.
Sebastian Buemi.
Bottled this Spa 08 podium, but no one talks about it.
He did. Because then it would have made Seb's podium race win next weekend look slightly less impressive. Sebastian Buemi, I thought you might get him, to be fair.
Yeah.
Felipe Nasser.
Wow, it's just all the mediocrity.
It really is the mediocrity. I mean, when you run through this list, you got Paul di Resta.
Oh yeah, I should have got Paul. I mean, the thing is,
Jean-Eric Vergne.
I simply don't watch endurance racing. I thought all of these are racing FE, to be honest. They do both.
Most of them do both, yeah, because there's not that many races in each.
Wow.
Esteban Gutierrez.
Nice.
My favourite one at all, Jan Magnussen.
Oh, I wouldn't have got him.
He still kicks around in Corvettes still, I think, at the moment. Guido van der Gaard,
Oh, nice.
of course famous for apparently being funny on Twitter, but I've never quite understood it.
No.
Robert Kubica,
Oh, I could have got Kubica.
Daniel Kvyat,
Nice.
and last but absolutely not least, Jamie, you forgot Jenson Button.
Oh, I saw Button raced it. I should have got
Everyone saw Button. It was
Yeah.
like the biggest thing of the weekend.
that. Problem is,
Button was racing.
I'm out of sync with Europe and with the UK, so my Twitter is just dead.
It was a
'Cause
NASCAR he was driving. You're literally in the home of NASCAR.
Yeah,
Deary
maybe
me,
I should have got
deary
him.
me. You probably should have got that one. Well, there we go. That might be the worst quiz we've ever done on
Potentially.
the show in terms of overall performance there. Let's talk more then, Jamie. About, I mean, like I said, the big thing this week is mainly personnel changes, isn't it? James Key has gone to Sauber in a rather, or Audi Sauber.
Yeah, and that's a very good move. You can kind of see the Audi team making more and more moves to make Sauber good. Obviously, they got Andreas Seidel from McLaren. They've they've got Zhou Guanyu, who's one of the hottest prospects on the grid right now. So
If you're Jamie183. this podcast is still called Knowing Wheel, you know that.
yeah, so they're just doing good stuff. And actually, I listened to a podcast on my flight with Mario Tyson, who's the ex BMW Motorsport boss.
Yes.
Who basically said he's very impressed with what Audi are doing because it's very German, very efficient, and
of course it's his old team.
Yeah. So it's good. It's good stuff from Audi, and I expect. Maybe I shouldn't expect big things, but I am expecting slightly big things when Audi do get into the sport in 2026.
Are you still expecting Zhou Guanyu to be there at that point? Is that why you're
I think
expecting
so.
big things?
I do think so, to be honest. Like the way he's driving at the minute, I don't see why they'd replace him. So it'll be Bottas out first.
Probably get someone else better.
Yeah, get Lando in for Bottas, and then he's sorted.
No, I meant for Zhou, to be honest, but either or. I mean, it would not surprise me, to be completely honest, if neither Zhou or Bottas make it to Audi. But as I mentioned before, it also wouldn't surprise me if they kept Zhou, because they want to try and sell Audis in China, which does make a lot of sense as well. And, you know, as much as I will give Zhou a bit of stick just because Jamie does absolutely kiss him, he is doing a still pretty good job in a bit of an anomalous car this year, isn't it, unfortunately?
Yeah, definitely.
I think the last big news we've got then, before we jump into the Canadian Grand Prix, Mick Schumacher apparently wants back in on a Formula 1 seat, but I can't work out where he thinks he's going to be able to go.
Yeah, there's so little movement year on year. Like, you kind of get one in every 3 or 4 years where something big happens, like the likes of Ricciardo to Renault was like that kind of thing that kicked off the transfer window. But that hasn't. I mean, we had it in 2020, but it was over as soon as it began, and then we haven't really had the big movement reshuffle since. So it doesn't really look like anything will happen anytime soon. I guess you've got the Hamilton to Ferrari, but that kind of, if that happens, that would be a bit of a straight swap. It's not going to blow it apart.
But we think it would be a straight swap.
Yeah,
we
that's
don't know,
true.
to be honest.
True.
I mean, it begs the question, doesn't it, with Mercedes? To be completely honest, this was something I've been thinking about this week. Obviously, when this news article came out, because they drew a fantastic comparison to Alex Albon. Obviously, when he took the year off after he was dropped by Red Bull. Of course, Albon jumped into DTM. It wasn't the greatest campaign in the world, but it kept him racing. Of course, Mick is doing simulator work for Mercedes. But you do wonder why they aren't chucking him into a Mercedes GT3 car or something like that. Like, what's going on, like, with Mick Schumacher?
Yeah, because he's kind of just like wasting away as a third driver, kind of like what we saw Buemi do for Red Bull for years, didn't we? Before he started racing in Formula E.
Technically.
Yeah. So you kind of wonder, like, he'll want to be racing surely, like, unless he thinks there's going to be a seat open up at one of Mercedes' teams. But then you think Aston Martin are fairly set for the next 3 years. You think
they're no longer really a Mercedes team either, are they? With the
yeah,
new
true.
Honda
They're
deal?
going to Honda, aren't they? So, and you got McLaren, who have got probably one of the strongest irons on the grid, but definitely not the strongest car on the grid. And you've got Williams, who I guess they want to keep Logan for as long as they can, but yeah, I think Albon's fairly safe there. And then arguably the Logan Sargent seat, but he's only a rookie, so they'd probably give him more than 1 year, you'd imagine, unless he keeps crashing and finishing last.
They gave Latifi 3.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you've just raised a fantastic point there as well, Jamie. It's actually quite impressive how quickly Mercedes' kind of whole system has, like, not internally but externally, how quickly that's fallen apart, hasn't it? Because they've gone from really having... I mean, McLaren was
they used
never
to power
really...
4 teams.
Exactly. They still do right now, to be fair.
Oh, yeah, true. I forgot they replaced.
But obviously, McLaren were very, very fiercely trying to remain independent. Of course, when they came back under the Mercedes guys, Aston Martin are going. Williams are very much trying to prove themselves that they're not just going to be a test bench for other teams anymore. They want to actually be their own organisation. Mercedes are in trouble here, aren't they? Unless B team, official B team.
Yeah, but who are they going to get a B team with? Unless they completely buy Williams, which I don't think will happen.
That's what I mean. You got 100. So Mercedes had an operating budget of $500 million a year. Suddenly that's been cut down to, after driver contracts and obviously top 3 personnel, probably in the ballpark of 250-300 million.
Yeah,
you got 200 million there that's just suddenly not being used. Easily enough.
They could. It would kind of be, what's the point though? Because they'd be so behind the curve. I guess they could just use their old parts like Toro Rosso did at first. But yeah, it would be very interesting. I mean, you kind of want to get more and more teams, but do you want B teams? I mean, Toro Rosso have been like the perennial second team for Red Bull, but now, yeah, even for a bit they were outperforming Red Bull, but now they're definitely back to being like a B team. It's like, do you want like 3 teams that are just never going to win races because they're big team second team?
We've already got 3 teams that don't win races. McLaren, Williams, AlphaTauri this
year. True. Yeah, it's true. But I mean, for Mick, obviously, if they do set up if this is a plan they do want to make, it won't be until 26 probably. So he probably won't be around by then, to be perfectly honest. But people on Twitter will still be crying about it.
Upset about it. I mean, this was the other thing as well, isn't it? That I know we spoke about a lot over the last couple of years, and that kind of surprised me as well. Why didn't, what was, like we said that, we don't think Mick Schumacher's going to come back. Does he now look at, because, I mean, obviously, again, you probably won't know much about this, but of course, Hypercar this year, Le Mans was sensational. So, last year, for example, Jamie, or the year before last, I think there were 6 LMP1 cars, so top class cars at Le Mans. 2 Toyotas, and then 4 other mishmash privateer teams. This year, that number was 16. Next year, that number, I think, is meant to be as high, potentially, as 27.
Wow, it's really growing.
Exponential growth in Hypercar has been ridiculous. It does really feel like we could potentially be in for a scenario now where Hypercar is up there with Formula 1 in kind of a similar vein to how IndyCar has been able to market itself in recent years as a good alternative for drivers that, let's be fair, probably aren't quite as good as Formula 1 drivers, but are still very, very good drivers. We always said this about Mick and Robert Schwartzman, didn't we? Surely they've got to be eyeing up Ferrari's Hypercar program, especially after the success now.
Yeah, you imagine so. And it seems like a really safe place to land for them. Although Mick has obviously left the Ferrari umbrella now. But, I mean, certainly back in the day when it looked like Schwartzman and Schumacher wouldn't get F1 seats, we were like, just go do Hypercar. We called it 3 years ago.
We did. And then it was wrong. Neither of them did it.
Yeah.
Pretty simply. Which is disappointing. To say the least. But shall we jump in then, Jamie? Canadian Grand Prix preview. I mean, in terms of actual Formula 1 this weekend, we got no real teams bringing any major upgrades, or at least not that we know at the moment. I mean, really, I think it's similar questions, isn't it, to Barcelona, isn't it, really? Red Bull, let's be fair, probably still going to dominate. But Mercedes, are they going to be closer, or are they going to be back a bit more with Ferrari and Aston Martin?
Well, you look at the style of track, and with all the changes that Spain has had, they're quite similar in many ways.
Not really.
Well, there's not that many low speed corners at Canada. Just, I guess all
of them are low speed.
Nah, turn I mean, turn 2 is, I guess, second last is.
Turn
yeah,
1
true.
is low speed, turn 2 is low speed, 3 and 4
Okay.
are. 5 isn't. I'll give you credit there.
Yeah.
Every corner at Canada is low speed. It's just obviously very low downforce still.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe it'll be more like the Monaco Sector 3 Red Bull OP that we saw. But yeah, I think realistically you're looking at a Red Bull winning. It is a street track technically, so I guess Sergio Perez is looking to bounce back from a couple of
Just like he
disappointing
did at
races.
Monaco on the last
Oh
street
yeah,
track.
it bounced off the wall quite hard, to be fair. So yeah, I think Mercedes are probably hoping just to be solidly in second. Although even in Spain, Russell just randomly qualified 12th, and it was race pace really when they came alive. So it's a very short track, so hopefully we get as spicy a qualifying session as we have done the last 2 races. And then yeah, well, we shall see.
Fingers crossed, isn't it? I think we can all hope that this weekend is spicy at the very least. I mean, Canada has often delivered some quite dramatic races as well. But predictions then, Jamie? Pole position, top 3?
I'll let you go first.
Max Verstappen. Oh, I'm going to say Perez are going to be really boring. And Lewis.
Nice. That's probably the safest bet. So I will go Max Verstappen. I will also go Max Verstappen. But I'll switch it up and go Hamilton Alonso.
Oh, okay. Alonso back on the podium.
Australia repeat, I reckon.
That's brave when you think how high speed Canada is and how not great around high speed circuits the Aston Martin is. But
Wait, you've just told me it's all low speed corners.
It's low speed corners, but it's still a high speed circuit.
Well, he got podiums, what, for 4 out of 5 races at the start?
Yeah, to be fair.
They were very mixed up tracks.
What happens to Perez, I suppose, is my real question. Hits a wall?
He probably just has a bad race again. Yeah, a bit of damage at turn 1.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, we'll wait and see as to how that one goes then. But Jamie, have we got anything else to add before we round out? Again, another fairly short preview show, isn't it?
Yeah. What was the result last year at Canada? Actually, this is a race I just don't remember. It was
Verstappen, because Alonso qualified on the front row, didn't he? And then had a nightmare race.
Yeah. And then they absolutely screwed him over, didn't they?
Yeah. Verstappen, I know Hamilton got a podium. I think it was Sainz second,
Probably
wasn't it? Yeah, Sainz was second. Because he was
I
meant to
have
be
no
able to
recollection
challenge
of that
Max
at all.
at the end because he was on softer, fresher tyres and did nothing.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
That was
that was our podium last year. So Sergio Perez again missed out on a podium in Montreal. But there we go then. I think that has been our preview for the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend here from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Jamie, as always, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Are you going out now for a cheeseburger for breakfast or?
I don't know what I'm doing actually. I'm going touring the city of Nashville today, so that'll be fun.
Enjoy it, my friend.
Yeah.
And are you back in the UK next week for our show?
No, I don't think so. I'll either be here or in New York City, depending on when we record. So that'll be fun.
Fair play. We will have Jamie trackside for the New York Grand Prix that gets confirmed between now and then. So looking forward to that as well. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening as always. If you have enjoyed, please make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed, follow, all that good stuff. And we will return then next week to look back over the action from the Canadian Grand Prix.